Like Jonah in the Bible, I took off and came to Roiro and got done with GLC. In fact, I consoled myself and said, almost 18 years I have done this work. So this is the story that I want to use to encourage those of you who feel called to ministry, who feel called by God to do something, but you're stuck in that never-ending quagmire of where will the finances come from? When will the right time come? I just want to use this story to illustrate to you. If you have a calling, or if you feel there is something that you want to do for the betterment of your society, just do it. There is no right time. Let me give you the story of GLC 2019 to now. So as I said, in 2018, the bishop died. I left Isili. I fled to Roiro. I came to Roiro, established, I used to sell land. So opened some offices and we were doing okay. I forgot about GLC. And to me, I reasoned. I had been in this thing, man, almost 18 years. Kwani am I the only CHOKORA who came from the streets? I had had enough. It was time consuming. It wasn't paying. But for me, I still hadn't recognized that this is a calling. It was not just some pastime thing or something of the sort that I was doing. So 2018 passes, and in early 2019, we had left the center in Isili to the bishop's son, a friend of mine called Reverend John Dungo. Reverend John is a fantastic pastor, a man of God. But this wasn't his calling. So he ran this ministry for some time, and by January of 2019, he came to Roiro and told me this place would close. And when he said he was going to close it, it was the bills, they were unpaid bills. It was not sustainable anymore. Because remember, at that time, there was nobody around who was helping to fund it. So basically, it couldn't run any longer. But what I remember most is that when John came to see me about this, I remembered where God had got me from and how he had used the same organization to get me out of a situation that without GLC, my life would have been over. I wouldn't be here. And I thought, if it closes, what if I went to GLC on the 26th of March, the year 2000? What if it had closed on the 25th of March, the day before? I would be dead. And so I felt convicted within me that we would do something to raise and allow the funds for John to continue running the ministry. I was not intent on going back to run it, but we thought we'd do some fundraising and see how GLC can push on. So we got some friends together, talked to them about GLC, and this is the opportunity I want to take for the guys who answered this call and the hundreds of you who continue to support GLC. First of all, I want to appreciate all of you, from the first guys who are there. Guys, like the first guy I ever talked to was Dr. Githaiga Kamau. That was the first guy I told about this. And so anyway, many other guys came on board. And in April 2019, we held what was dubbed a father and sons event. Primarily what we wanted to do was just to raise funds, offset the bills, GLC iendelee, mimi nirudi Roiro, nirudi shughuli zangu. But watch how God works. We had this father and sons event where we invited some friends from all of backgrounds to come with their sons, to come mingle with the men we're bringing from the street, so that their children get an opportunity to see what can happen to them if they choose the path of drugs and alcohol. And God doesn't work with numbers. The numbers were not as expected on that day. But the people God sent were the people who will help to raise the funds that we needed at that time. But the most amazing thing happened. One guy came with a friend. This is a guy I had never seen before. And the guy took a look at GLC and he asked, why are you doing such good work in tiny premises like this? Let me just tell you what the setup in GLC at the time was. We had 3 or 4 small rooms. We never had beds. From 1996 up till that year 2018, even up till 2019, we had no beds. We just had mattresses. GLC was a labor of love. Mattresses were spread on the floor. And a guy coming from the streets, this is where there would be house, there would be clothes. We got clothes from a few people who would want to assist us. But what was in abundance was the love and the acceptance that the street men found in GLC. So for all those years, that's how it had operated. So when these guys come to see, and this guy is shocked, these 3 or 4 rooms, bana godoro zimejazana hapa, so many guys sleeping. Why do you? Because at that time we used to take in about 40 guys from the streets at any given time. So a guy says, I have land in Roiro. Roiro, the same place I had run away from Isilia, I had run away to Roiro. And this guy says, I've got land in Roiro. I say, and not only does he have land, he wants to offer us that land to do the work that we do. I say, okay. So, man, we finish the fundraising, go home, I forgot about him. But Monday he turns up at my office. And he drives and he picks me up and drives me to a place just a short distance from where we currently are. Guy lives on 1.25 acres of land. However, he's got 3/4 of an acre of land on which there was an old pigsty. He tried to keep pigs. Pigs didn't work. He had abandoned the pigsty. And so he says, I can give you this land to do your work. And you know, looking at the way madeni ziko mingi isili, it was unsustainable. We said, thank you, and took up his offer. Now there was also this, the only building there, as I said, was a pigsty. But taking a look at this, and the first thing that came to mind was the prodigal son ate with the pigs. We will use the pigsty to host the prodigal son. That was the first thing I thought of in my mind. And once I talked to a few friends came together and funds were gathered and a center was built there. We built a very nice center, rescue center. Now there was plenty of room, there were dormitories, there was plenty of room, we had vegetables in the back garden and stuff like that, and the place was a much more conducive environment than the environment in which we were in Isili for those years. But it was still bare, no furniture, no nothing. But because we had taken this step, I think I want to demonstrate how God just begins to make things work if you're brave enough to take that initial step. As the center gets completed, there's a friend of mine. This guy, we go way back, all the way to Standard 5 in Nairobi Primary School. It's called Anthony Kirubi. I'll mention him. Because Tony was a guy we had been with all the way from Standard 5, then we'd come out, we had routed together when we were in high school, we had lost touch, he went into the business world, I went into the streets. We had reconnected after I came out of the streets, and he knew about the work that I do, and he had come to GLC many times. But he had never really gotten involved. But this time he looks at the center and says, "Hey, Solo, you are going to make guys sleep on the floor again here?" I say, "Yeah, what alternative do we have?" Guy tells me, "No way." Goes to a premises he owns and brings me 44 beds and 66 mattresses. That was God. Once he has brought that, a lady, I will not name, she prefers anonymity, but as the initials PK, came and overheard me talking to the guys in Isili, who now we wanted to move the guys from Isili to the new place in Roiro. And I was telling those guys, zimchemshe zile blanketi so that when they come to Roiro, at least they come clean. Yeah? And this lady says, "No way, that's going to happen." And she went out and bought us 100 brand new blankets. Kidogo, we are Sitam Women's Ministry of Sitam Thika Road. They come visiting and they buy all the cutlery. Kidogo, a group I had never heard of called KENASA, Kenya National Secretaries Association, comes visiting and buys us a huge jiko. And to cut a long story short, God sent people. God sent tens of people, and in a short time, the center had everything it needed just by God allowing it to happen. And the only thing that we moved with from the Isili Center were only the people. All the things in the Isili Center, actually we gave them to the Chokoras still left in the streets of Isili, who had shown no indication of wanting to move out. And we moved 40 guys from the center in Isili to the new premises in Roiro. Let me just say that we came and Roiro was a fantastic place for us, but after some time, we had differences with the person who had given us the piece of land. I don't want to go into those differences, they are not relevant now, but we had differences. And eventually those differences, within just a few short months, and then those differences boiled over and we couldn't agree anymore. And so we left his land and came to the current premises on which we are. This is in December 2019. And now, by January, and I want to use this to encourage those in ministry who think that the going is so tough that it's time to quit. Let me encourage you with what happened from then on. So we come here to this current premises December 2019. By January 2020, because of the fallout we had at the previous place, anybody who supported us, especially those who contributed to the building of that center, they walked out on us. And I cannot blame them, because, we look like very disorganized guys. As soon as we have a center, suddenly there's some disagreements in there. But the thing is this, they didn't understand the full situation, and I don't want to go into that. Anyway, so here we are on this piece of land and with no support. This is January the year 2020. And now, with guys on the premises, rent is a problem, everything is a problem, and I'm even wondering, still guys want to do ministry, I'm still encouraging you. So I'm wondering, hii ni kitu gani Mungu ameniletea? Now this thing is interfering with my kawaida business. Now I have to keep on taking care of this place, and this is not something that pays. It's not going to put food on the table, and you have got a family, you have got your needs, and you're wondering, Sasa hii kitu ndaendelea nayo namna gani? Let me tell you, if God calls you to something, he has already set aside provision and will surely channel that provision to you. As we are going through this, I remember asking God, what am I going to do now to actually make my own income? And that's the time I got the idea to write my story, the book, CHOKORA, that I wrote in 2020. All of those things that, first of all, I'd heard how printing, you had to print 100 books. Sijui, you know, I talked to some people about editing and some publishers and stuff like that, and they told me I had to come up with 35,000. I didn't have 35,000. I didn't know how I was going to print 100 books, but I had the idea in my head and a conviction that something will happen if I take the steps. So I bought an A4 book and I wrote my story in it. 2-3 days later, I'm a guy who can fix comps very well, but I'm a lousy typist. So then I sat down to type. And when I did eventually finish typing my story, on that day, a guy called me on a totally unrelated matter. And when we had finished discussing that, I mentioned that I have now written a book and I don't know what is the next step. That's the time the guy tells me, why do you don't know about CLC? I said, what's CLC? This is Christian Literature Communications. And that's how I found out that you can print books on demand in Kenya. I was able to just get a single copy printed so that I could see what the book looked like. Few more copies, I was sure of the book. Short while later, I went to speak to a group of men in the Man Enough program. I had printed 20 books and I sold those 20 books. That God had created for me, not only a way to spread my story, but at least a source of income. So I stopped complaining, what am I doing in this ministry? Still encouraging you guys who want to do ministry. So that was me. But what about the ministry? And it was hard enough. In February the year 2020, another friend, James Kabucho, walked into these premises and asked, what do you pay here? What do you pay here for rent? And we gave him the figure, 20,000 a month. The rent here is 20,000 a month. Of course, then there's the lake, the water, and other bills like that. A guy went and wrote a standing order in the bank, which still stands up till today. Up till today, he funds 30,000 shillings a month to GLC. I guess by the end of this year, he will be over $1 million in funding to GLC. As an individual, I'm just trying to point to you how God will send people your way if you pick up and run with what He has entrusted you to do. At the time, I didn't have a car. I sold my car previously while trying to expand on something, and I was complaining. I just want to show some of the little miracles that God created here that fully convinced me that I should do this work. That there was a purpose, that this was my purpose. Because kuna ile kazi unaweza jiekelea and nothing happens. Na kuna ile kazi unaweza ona these things that are happening around me. Hapana, God has, God is in the mix in this thing. So I don't live near here. I live about 5 kilometers away from here, and sometimes, things were hard. Sometimes coming here is problematic, nini. And at around that time, some family friends, Bidan and his wife Faith, Bidan Moroki and his wife Faith. Faith left the country, journeyed to the US, and on arrival there, she quickly told the husband, give Solomon my car to go and collect chokoras from the streets. The Noah you see outside here, that black Noah, I didn't pay a cent for it. God provided even the transport. Now, this is 2020. And I'm still encouraging you guys who want to do ministry. We have come into March. And in March 2020, the country went on a lockdown. Now, you have about 30 men in here. Feeding, clothing, and taking care of medical bills of 30 people is not a cheap, it is expensive. And now the country has gone on a lockdown. You are dependent on churches for food, because by then a number of churches, and I want to thank Rejoice Baptist Church, I want to thank PCA Kawasukari, I want to thank Sitam Thika Road, I want to thank Sitam Buruburu, and all these other churches who were coming to the assistance of GLC in as far as matters of food were concerned. But then when the lockdown came, even the churches shut down. You know, you would think that the story of GLC would have been over then. And this is the thing, what happened next was what fully beyond a shadow of doubt convinced me God was in the mix and wanted us to continue with this work. During that shutdown period, churches were closed. People didn't all worship together, so therefore they didn't take food or stuff to church, so we couldn't get food that way. But during that lockdown period, in this compound under this kibanda, we were able to do social distancing and were visited by more church groups and more church members than at any other time. I'll tell you, during the COVID lockdown, we had more Bible study groups here, more members of churches visiting these premises than we have even this time that now COVID is over. GLC stood. People gave. They brought their food, they shared their time, they shared their resources. And through the lockdown, we got through. And I thank you all, everybody who is involved in GLC. You are far too many for me to name you individually. But may God bless you. Anybody else who wants to continue getting involved in GLC, God bless you. Welcome on board. Because this is a way of truly bringing the community to take care of its own issues. And we have a myriad of issues that surround us. And by setting up or replicating such centers, we can be able to solve many other things. But for me, I always look at the solution to the problem of the street man, and two, the boy child, alcohol, and drugs. And anybody watching me, Kwanza, who is in Nairobi or in Kiambu, I am sure you will agree with me that these kind of centers are necessary. Back to GLC. So we come through the COVID period. And in that time, even the gardens that you will see here, members of the public are the ones who came and contributed to those gardens. And even after COVID has come and passed, there are still people who have visited us, people who contribute their time. I'm grateful to universities like USIU, like Park University, especially to Park University, because the psychologists that we have here, most of them either come from USIU, Park University, and a few other universities. And I am grateful for them to send their people on practicum here, because it helps our guys to get an insight into themselves. GLC runs on a 4-stage process. The first stage of GLC is, of course, the physical rescue from the street To remove a man, it is rescue. That's number one. Removing a person from the physical environment in which he dwells. Because a guy living on the street, shida ni mingi zile zimemkumba, he cannot even think straight. You cannot reform a person who is there. So the first stage is rescue. Having rescued and brought him in, the second stage is rehabilitation. Rehabilitation here is primarily through the word of God, because we believe that it is only God who can return you to the original state in which he meant for you to be. But we also have psychologists and psychiatrists who volunteer, give of their time to come here, because these also help to give our people an insight into themselves. You know, in GLC, our rehabilitation process is not really concerned about the amount of bangi or pombe ulikuwa unakunywa. Behind every addict, there is an underlying issue. And what we are more concerned with here is the underlying issues. So the psychologists are also able to help this guy to get a better insight into himself and start understanding some of the things that may have happened to them. And we are grateful for all of you who come here to give of your time. I know you could be out there charging, but you are here. And thank you for what you do for the guys here. So after that, we come to the third stage of GLC, which is reconciliation. Remember, when you look at men in the streets, we tend to think of them as the spawn of the devil, fathered by Satan and coming from no family or anything. I don't know what we think about them. It's like they fell from trees or something. But remember, they did not. These people came from family units somewhere. These people were fathers. These people were brothers. These people were husbands. These people were sons. And some were even grandfathers. But certain situations led them to living in the street. So when they come out of that street, and once they have been rehabilitated, then we move on to reconciliation. And we try to contact their loved ones. Unfortunately, and this is a subject that I will address in a different clip, that reconciliation doesn't, in most times, doesn't work. Because the effects that have been felt by the family or the loved ones, they are carrying unforgiveness, they are carrying bitterness, and in many cases will not want to have anything to do with this person at that point. There are those, and I thank you for accepting your loved ones, who accept their people, and a bond begins to be established. So the final step is reintegration back into society. And in this reintegration is where we get jobs for these guys. You know, these guys cannot just go back into society. They have come from the streets. Hawana mahali pa kurudi, so they stay here and we get them jobs to do, and they come back to rest here in the evening. So we've taught these guys not to despise small beginnings. And so the jobs we get them are mostly manual jobs. Watu wa mkono kwa mjengo, it's just casual. But take, for example, a casual job at Mjengo. This is 600 shillings a day. Because this guy is still living on our premises, we allow him the use of only 100. 500 bob, he will save at the center. Now, give a guy 40 days of work. This is roughly like 2 months. 40 days times the 500 translates to 20,000. For this guy who came from the streets, this is probably the first time he has ever seen 20,000. It boosts him to know that he's capable of making such earnings. Now, in our area here, small rooms go for around between 1,500 to 2,000 bob. So we take these guys, we rent them a house with their own money, Buy them a bed, mattress, a starter kit to start your own house, 2-3 sufurias, vikombe kadhaa, vijiko kadhaa, the two necessary items. Tunamuombea nyumba, tunambarikishia, and he's reintegrated back into society as a normal, decent, contributing and productive member of the same society which once shunned him. So that's our process. We have like a 1-year follow-up, just keeping tabs and seeing how the guy is doing. Whatever he would learn to accomplish with his life thereafter, we have given him the head start. Now, there is one last category of guys who I would like to mention. There are a few guys who come to us. They, you'll find two or three guys at the center. You will find are people who are not necessarily on the streets, but these were men in dire situations who, though were not on the physical street, they needed out. And even to such men, we extend help. Here at the center, you will also find another category of men as you go around. And because we do not discriminate on age when we are rescuing men from the streets, we have rescued men who are, for example, reconciliation doesn't work and reintegration cannot work because they are old. They cannot be sent to work. In the previously, before COVID, we were able to work with old people's homes, and I really want to thank, like Little Sisters of the Poor at Kasarani. They took in 2 of our guys. But after COVID, that has become difficult, and now we are forced to house those old men here. So as you go around the center, you will notice there are some old men for whom we are looking for an alternative. If anyone is out there and knows where we can be able to take these old men to old people's homes so that they can get their dignity and be in the company of those who are their age mates and live out their last days peacefully, please get in touch with us. So thank you guys for watching. I'm sure you now have a good understanding, a good grasp of what goes on in GLC. For those who feel called to do this kind of work or who feel they can replicate it, you have seen how it goes and will be happy to help you in your replication of such a project. For the hundreds of you out there who continue to support GLC, through your prayers, through your material gifts, through your clothes, through even just coming to humanize the people who are here, just sharing your time, thank you, bless you, and we ask you to continue visiting. However, if you want to support the center, we have a pay bill number. You could, first of all, you could visit. That's most important. Because visiting, by visiting, you actually get to understand and interact with the people at the center. But we have a pay bill number through which you could also assist. Our pay bill number is 891-300. The account is GLC. If you want to reach out to me, you can reach me on my number 0715-874-094. God bless you. Till next time.